Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled you're joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us.
So our mission today is to explore this seemingly simple but honestly deeply philosophical article. It's written by Tobias Reidenhag.
Right, the head of design over at Intunio.
Yeah, exactly. Intunio is a Swedish UX design and technical development company based out of Gothenburg. And this piece was published back in February 2026. The title translates to Why We Call Ourselves a Studio and Not an Agency.
Which sounds like just a branding thing at first,
Yeah.
like a superficial choice.
It really does. But to understand why this specific choice of words matters so much, I want you to imagine buying a ticket to a massive sprawling theme park. You have a very specific set of expectations the moment you hand over your credit card.
Oh, for sure. You're strapping in for the roller coaster.
Right. You're expecting the adrenaline drop, the flashing lights, that carefully curated burst of excitement that is completely thrilling, and then inevitably it's over in about 3 minutes.
Yet you know the exact contract you are entering into with that theme park. It's a transaction built around a highly engineered, temporary thrill, a sprint of entertainment, if we want to look at it that way.
But imagine if you bought that same ticket, you walked through the giant gates, and instead of directing you to the roller coaster, the staff handed you a shovel. Like a shovel, a pair of gardening gloves, and some blueprints.
I'd be looking around for the hidden cameras.
Right. And then they say, all right, let's build a community garden that's going to feed this neighborhood for the next 20 years.
You would be profoundly confused.
Sure.
I mean, you might even be angry, despite the fact that a community garden is, objectively, a wonderful and necessary thing to build.
Totally.
The friction comes entirely from the expectation. The label on the ticket promised a temporary thrill, and the reality demanded a long-term structural commitment.
And that exact tension, the massive, often hidden power of the labels we use to describe who we are and what we do, that's the core of what Intunio is wrestling with in this article.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Because Intunio builds digital products and interfaces.
Yes, they do.
And day to day, a designer at an agency, a designer at a consultancy, and a designer at a studio might all be sitting in front of the exact same software. They're just moving the exact same pixels around a screen, you know?
Right, the mechanical output looks identical.
Exactly. But Intunio realized that the specific noun they use to describe their company, it fundamentally rewires their clients' expectations before a single pixel is ever moved.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of business relationships, specifically in the B2B space. We often think of a company title or a business label as purely a marketing decision.
Like just something to put on the LinkedIn bio.
Yeah, or the frosted glass door of the office.
Mm-hmm.
But Reidenhag is arguing that it is actually a binding psychological contract. When you introduce yourself to a new client, the word you choose dictates the pace of the work.
Wow, okay.
It dictates the structure of the billing and the ultimate definition of success. Intunio deliberately chooses the word studio because for them, it is the absolute most precise way to describe the reality of how they operate.
I have to play devil's advocate here for you listening, though, because I can hear the objection forming. Doesn't the client really just care about the final product?
That's the common assumption, yeah.
Right, like if I'm a business owner and I hire a company to build me a new mobile app, I just want the app to work. Why does the label on the door matter so much before the work even kicks off?
Well, the answer lies in what the word final actually means to the people doing the work.
Yeah.
If you hire someone under an agency contract, final usually means launch day.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it means the product is out the door, the invoice is paid, and the team moves on to the next client.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're building a complex digital platform, there really is no final.
It's an ongoing thing.
Exactly. The label matters before the work kicks off because it establishes whether the development team is building for a launch event or if they're building for a decade of daily use.
I want to push back on that slightly, though. Is it really that rigid? I mean, aren't we just talking about semantics here?
Tell me.
Surely a good agency can build a long-term product and a bad studio can build a terrible short-term product. Does the client really read that deeply into the vocabulary during the procurement phase?
It's a fair challenge, but the vocabulary sets the framework for the entire relationship. Think about how budgets are approved in a corporate setting. If a company hires an agency, the budget often comes from the marketing department.
Ah, right. And marketing budgets are completely different.
Exactly. They are historically tied to quarters, to fiscal years, to specific, measurable campaigns. The money is allocated for a burst of activity.
Like a big push.
Right. But if you hire a studio, The implication is that you're entering into a product development cycle. That requires a different kind of budget, a different internal stakeholder, and a completely different timeline. Intunio is trying to bypass the marketing department's mindset entirely by refusing the label that attracts it.
Which brings us to the history of that mindset, actually. To really understand why Intunio insists so heavily on being called a studio, we have to look at what they are actively rejecting. They are pushing back hard against the traditional agency model.
They are. The source material delves into the historical DNA of that agency model.
Right.
By definition, most agencies operating today have their roots in advertising, communication, and marketing. That is their origin story,
The whole Mad Men era of billboards and television spots.
which fundamentally shapes their organizational DNA.
Yeah.
Because of those roots, their internal structures are inherently built around time-limited efforts. We're talking about campaigns, we're talking about massive launches. The goal is generating maximum reach, maximum visibility, and delivering a specific message within a very specific window of time.
So the results are explicitly designed to function for the here and now,
Precisely.
which makes total sense for an ad campaign. Like if you have a massive summer blowout sale, you don't need the summer sale ad to function in December.
No, it would be useless.
It's a spectacular fireworks display. Think about a massive 4th of July or New Year's Eve fireworks show over a city. It takes immense planning, sometimes months of logistics.
Coordinating explosives,
Yeah.
safety checks.
Yeah, and timing it perfectly to a musical score. It creates a massive buzz. Everyone is looking up at the sky at the exact same time, taking photos, talking about it. But once it's over, the sky just goes dark.
Yeah, the show's done.
You don't maintain a fireworks show. You sweep up the cardboard tubes the next morning and you move on to the next event.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you start to see why that fireworks model fundamentally fails when it is applied to long-term digital platforms.
Right.
Building a tech platform, a digital product that people rely on to do their banking or manage their healthcare or run their business, it requires a completely different organizational structure.
You can't just set it off and walk away.
Exactly. You cannot build a stable software ecosystem using a team whose entire psychological motivation is geared toward a temporary, massive launch peak.
But wait, if you are a startup founder listening to this, you might actually need a spectacular fireworks show to get funding, right? You need the hype.
Oh, absolutely.
You need the flashy prototype to show venture capitalists. Isn't Intunio alienating a massive chunk of the market by refusing to build for temporary peaks? Like, they are basically turning away clients who need that initial explosion of attention.
That is a crucial distinction to make. Intunio explicitly acknowledges in the text that the agency model is a great, highly effective model for its specific context. There's nothing inherently wrong with needing fireworks.
Okay, that's fair.
If you need to generate hype for funding, you absolutely should hire an agency to build your marketing campaign. But Intunio's argument is that you should not use that same team with that same time-limited mindset to engineer the core technical product itself.
Right.
The marketing of the product and the building of the product require two completely different operating systems.
Because the day after the launch, when the fireworks are over and the PR team goes home, that is when the actual users show up to use the software.
And if the development team was only incentivized to get the product out the door for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the underlying architecture might be an absolute mess.
Oh, totally. It might look beautiful on the surface for the investors, but under the hood, it's held together by duct tape and hope.
Exactly. The agency model is a sprint. Intunio realized that what they do is fundamentally a marathon.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because since the agency model is a sprint with a definitive, explosive ending, we have to look at how a studio handles the concept of an ending. And according to the text, the secret is that they don't.
They really don't. Intunio defines a studio as being much closer to product development than to campaign work.
Okay.
Their background, the actual history of the founders and the team, is rooted in product companies. That environment taught them a defining lesson, which is that in the digital product world, there is rarely a clear end.
So it's the anti-fireworks show. Instead of building a 15-minute explosion in the sky, the studio mindset is like building a city's electrical grid.
That's a great way to put it.
An electrical grid is a massively complex system that has to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't build an electrical grid just for the day. The mayor cuts the ribbon at the new power plant.
No, the photo op doesn't keep the lights on.
Right, exactly. The decisions you make about the wires, the transformers, the routing, they can't be made just to look good for the cameras. Those decisions have to account for how the grid is going to be managed.
Yeah.
How it's going to be maintained when a severe storm hits at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and how it's going to be expanded decades into the future when this city's population inevitably doubles.
That analogy maps perfectly to Reidenhag's point about the reality of the everyday. Digital products, technical platforms, and the interfaces we use constantly, they have to function stably in the real world, sometimes around the clock.
Absolutely.
What is built must live on, and more importantly, it must improve long after the very first version is deemed done.
Oh.
You don't build a power grid for a photo op, you build it to withstand reality.
Right.
In Intunio's world, that means making structural code and design decisions for 5 years from now, not just for launch day.
So how does a studio actually do that? How do they build the grid instead of the fireworks, practically speaking?
Well, it comes down to the deep integration of their decision-making. In a studio model, decisions regarding technology, design, and structural architecture are strictly made with the future in mind.
Okay, so looking ahead.
Yeah. The text highlights that Intunio works tightly with internal teams, with technical specialists, and with the core business itself. It is a very holistic approach.
So they aren't just dropping off a finished design file and walking away to the next project.
Never. They are focused on the entirety of what goes into production, knowing they have a responsibility for how that solution lives on.
They aren't just designing the light switch on the wall. They're thinking about the wiring inside the wall that ensures the light switch still works when the house settles a decade from now.
That brings us to the grounded, day-to-day reality of this marathon mindset. We've spent a lot of time on the high-level philosophy here. Sprints versus marathons, agencies versus studios. But we need to look at how this actually impacts the daily grind for Intunio and for the clients who hire them.
Right. So what does this all mean for the actual workflow? At the end of the day, bills have to be paid, deadlines exist, projects have to ship. A company can't just sit around philosophizing about the future of the electrical grid forever.
No, they go out of business.
They have to actually deliver something.
Intunio is very clear on this point, actually. The source states that they absolutely still work in project forms. They still deliver what is needed here and now. They aren't ignoring deadlines or refusing to ship products.
Okay, good to know.
But the difference is the layer of responsibility they take on regarding the aftermath. They explicitly state in the article that they take responsibility for how the solution lives on organizationally, technically, and design-wise.
Let's pause on that phrase and break those three pillars down because that is a very heavy sentence. Organizationally, technically, and design-wise. If we think about what technically means in this context, hypothetically, it could mean a studio refuses to use a cheap, quick coding shortcut to meet a Friday deadline.
Right. If they know that shortcut will cause the entire system to crash under a heavy user load a year later.
Exactly. They are prioritizing technical stability over immediate speed.
Building on that, if you look at it design-wise, a hypothetical scenario might involve a studio refusing to just create one beautiful bespoke web page for a client.
What would they do instead?
Well, instead, they might spend extra time building a comprehensive design system, a whole library of standardized buttons, typography rules, and layouts.
Oh, so that the client's internal team can easily build 50 more pages down the line without the whole site looking like a disorganized mess.
Precisely. It's about designing a tool, not just a poster.
And the organizationally pillar is perhaps the most crucial and the one that clients probably overlook the most, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If a studio is taking organizational responsibility, it means they have to ask the client some very uncomfortable questions before the work begins. Questions like, do you actually have the internal staff to maintain this massive platform we are building for you?
Who is in charge of updating this?
Yeah, do you have a budget allocated for server maintenance next year? It's ensuring the client's company structure is actually prepared to adopt the product they are paying for.
To achieve that level of deep integration, Intunio makes a very bold statement in the text. They explicitly state they do not optimize for campaigns, they do not optimize for pitches, and they do not optimize for temporary peaks.
They optimize for functioning products.
Yes. And then Reidenhag drops this fascinating line. He admits that this approach makes the work less spectacular, but often more sustainable.
That is a wild thing to put in your own company's marketing material. Hire us, we are less spectacular.
It is definitely unusual.
If I'm a client and I'm about to write a massive check for a new digital product, do I really want the person taking my money to look me in the eye and say that?
Huh.
Isn't every CEO on the planet chasing the spectacular? How does a studio manage that friction when a client inevitably wants the fireworks?
This raises an important question, and it really gets to the heart of the paradox Intunio is presenting. We have been conditioned by the agency mindset, by the marketing and advertising world that surrounds us constantly, to believe that spectacular is the ultimate goal of any business endeavor.
Right.
But in the realm of digital products, spectacular almost always implies short-lived hype. It implies a facade that looks great from the outside, but lacks structural integrity.
It's the roller coaster again. It's spectacular for 3 minutes, your heart is pounding, you take a great photo, and then you're just standing in a concrete parking lot feeling slightly nauseous with nothing to show for it.
That's a great visual. By consciously laying down their ego, by choosing not to optimize for flashy smoke and mirrors pitches or temporary peaks in web traffic, Intunio's offering their clients something far more valuable in the long run: deep stability.
Stability over flash.
Yeah, they're looking at the client and saying, we're going to spend the bulk of our time understanding the deep context of your business, the messy reality of your internal teams, and the actual needs of your users, rather than just delivering the immediate surface-level task you asked us to do.
So they are building solutions that can be evolved and further developed. The alternative is building something fragile that will just need to be completely torn down and replaced in 2 years when the market trends change or the technology updates.
Yeah, exactly.
The cost of the hype cycle is astronomical. Like if a company has to rebuild their entire app every 3 years because the previous agency only built it for a specific launch event, they are bleeding money.
In the tech world, avoiding that cycle of constantly tearing down and rebuilding from scratch is the very definition of sustainability. It saves the client massive amounts of money, time, and organizational burnout over a 10-year horizon.
That makes total sense.
The everyday reality of a studio isn't a constant adrenaline rush of launch parties and press releases. It's the quiet, steady, deeply satisfying work of keeping the grid running smoothly. It requires checking the ego at the door.
Less spectacular, but more sustainable. It really is a profound shift in perspective. And it all stems from the foundational desire to just use the correct, most precise word on the front door.
It proves that semantics in business aren't just academic debates for English majors. The words we choose literally set the boundaries of our reality. They dictate the talent we attract, the clients who trust us, and the ultimate lifespan of the work we produce.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's pull all these threads together. Intunio's decision to call themselves a studio rather than an agency or a consultancy is much more than just a branding exercise or a clever way to stand out in a crowded Swedish tech market.
Right.
It is a bold statement of intent. As Reidenhag notes at the end of the piece, for some assignments, the label truly doesn't matter. If you just need a quick graphic for a summer sale or a temporary landing page for a weekend event, call whoever you want.
Hire the fireworks company.
Yes, hire the fireworks company. But for clients who need a digital product to survive, function, and thrive long-term in the real world, setting the expectation of studio is absolutely crucial.
It signals a place of continuous evolution, a place that values deep context over shallow flash, a place dedicated to sustainable building rather than temporary peaks. It is a filter that ensures both the client and the creator are running the exact same race.
It's the difference between hiring a team to put on a show and hiring a team to build the infrastructure that will power your business for the next decade. Both require immense skill, both require brilliant creative minds, but they require entirely different mindsets, different timelines, and radically different expectations of what success looks like.
Which leaves us with a fascinating lens through which to view not just corporate business structures, but how we operate in our own lives.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, if we take Intunio's philosophy out of the design world and apply it personally, look at your own life, your own side projects, or the trajectory of your own career.
Okay.
Are you operating like an agency, constantly burning immense amounts of energy to chase the next short-term spectacular launch, the next flashy promotion, the next viral moment on social media, the next temporary peak of validation?
Buying the roller coaster ticket over and over again, hoping the thrill lasts a little longer this time.
Or are you building your life and your career like a studio? Laying down the ego, understanding your own deep context, and optimizing for the long-term, sustainable, and perhaps beautifully unspectacular systems that will actually stand the test of time. Are you optimizing for the launch party, or are you optimizing for the everyday reality?
Are you planting a garden, or are you just waiting for the next fireworks show? Something to definitely mull over as you go about your day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.